trying to follow that schedule is very difficult because many times are so extended. So I don't know, do you pull money out of there now, or do you take a good look at that plan first and then make an adjustment?
Well, I've heard Jim say that he needs money for equipment capital, right?
Yeah.
And if he pulled out 200,000, he'd have money available to spend on equipment if he wanted to, right?
Well, we've already budgeted for the equipment, for
23 is budgeted, so
that's already, accounted for.
Okay.
Let's talk about where we're budgeting money instead of where we're pulling it out right now, because that's a secondary question. How he's spending it. It's where we're allocating it to be spent at this point. So
okay.
So because I don't want to get into specifics, I just want to get into figuring out where we're putting this right now. And then we can talk about which road needs improvement, which equipment needs to be replaced.
Okay.
But I just want to talk about on a more of a global scale where we're putting. So now we've got 1.5 that we're putting somewhere. And I would personally rather see it in the capital projects, because then it's more clearly outlined with a plan where it's going, as opposed to just being part of the day-to-day operations. So because if we're funding these, then it's a specific something.
I think we want to put this and get something done with it.
Yeah.
What about parks? There's some expenses coming with parks that if there's money there, it'd be a good idea to allocate some.
So we've got 500,000 in the park.
Right. 529.
Terry mentioned the capital plan. The other thing that so capital plan and capital projects are two completely separate things. The capital plan is a 15-year plan that looks ahead, includes stuff like equipment. We talked the other night about including the roads, and we talked about including, it has parks in it, it has roofs of buildings, it has cemeteries, it has the capital plan I'm talking about. It has technology, it has HVAC, it has everything, any asset that the town owns, and the improvements for the capital plan. So set that aside for a second. The capital projects that Adeline's talking about are those specific capital projects that have money associated with them. However, we created multiple of those in the last year budget process that we never created a budget for. We have to go back and do that. We don't have a choice. We're kind of just operating by the
So where are we right now? Those capital projects, because we
need to get budgets for them. Right. We need to create budgets, assign money to them, which also goes in line with exactly what you're talking about.
So remind me of those that we.
Well, like the highway road improvements is one, fire station 2 improvements, outhouse park, west improvements, uptown infrastructure, gateway, ARPA, all those types of things. They all should have their own individual budgets, which we have not yet done.
So this is where we should probably break down that 1.5
yes,
and fund those.
Yes,
that's where I think this should go to fund those capital projects. So we have it in there. We can track it. It's easier to keep track. It's easier to have something to show for what we've done.
Yes.
At the end of the day, it's just now a matter of
breaking it down
and how much we're going to put in each one. That's reasonable to get something done. That's not going to be. Some of them we're going to have to build up, but
I think we all agree. Highways.
Do you have?
I have my copy.
No, give me a second.
I should have printed more copies of it. I'm sorry, but this is. So I think we all agree highway should get the lion's share, because that's the thing that's been underfunded. So I think we're all pretty much in agreement on that, right? So at least 50% of it should probably be going to highway.
Is Jim nodding yes?
Probably. Can't see me.
Jim's like, you said you don't.
Yeah, no, I'm listening.
You said you don't want that much?
No, I never said that.
Okay, so I think we're at least 50% on highway, and we can adjust that as we go, but let's start at 50, so, and see where we end up.
So do you want me to go make copies?
Well,
You
for
know
some
what?
reason, the
Yeah,
computer's
somebody
not
could go
connected to the
make 5
network,
copies of that, that'd be great.
which I find hard to believe, but that tells me that Tyler is in the building.
Tyler
since
is
the
definitely in
computer's
the
not connected to the
building.
network.
Try that one. I don't even know why that one.
Yeah, he's adjusting everything. He moved the network over one plug. So now all the things need to move over a plug.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Is it saved in here? Wow.
That would be the last.
Jean's making some copies of it right
Yeah.
now.
So a lot of our capital projects, about a little bit more than half of them, I'll just do this. The whole top row and then the first one and the second row of these capital projects are all grant funded. So there's nothing we need to do with any of
Yep.
those because the grant takes care of it. It was funded and it's already budgeted. It's these bottom ones here that are town funded that need budgets for each of them.
Do
So
any of
that's-
them have anything in them right now? That's what I was
Yes,
saying.
they all
do.
do.
Okay.
Mhm.
So Gateway Signs, Uptown Canandaigua Infrastructure, Outhouse West, Fire Station 2, Complete Streets, and Highway Road Improvements. Those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 need a budget with revenue and expenses appropriated to them, just like any other budget.
Yeah.
So we are at 750 for highways. This is just kicking out. Just I'm
Mhm.
just throwing
Yeah.
some numbers out right
So
now.
we're working with 1.5, right? And so we're at 750 per highway. Yeah. Let's just do it in percentages so that we can figure it out later, but. And then we can adjust around. I would like some of that to go into the complete streets because that's not just sidewalks, that's also multimodals, that could be trails if we need it to be.
And that currently.
And those
has
are
0.
expensive.
That one is
That's
currently
zero.
0, yeah.
That's called H38. is our
So
capital project.
uptown. That really needs the bid. If I'm correct, or is that outside the bid?
That's
Remind me.
Yeah,
Is that
it's-
separate from the bid?
It is separate from the bid in that part of that is general infrastructure that includes water. So for instance,
Okay.
water things relative to Canandaigua Farmington Water District.
Yeah. Okay.
So Doug, H39 is the highway one that we're
That's the
gonna
highway
fund,
road
right?
for
So
one.
that's 50%.
at this point, that's where we are.
That's what we're talking about.
Wait, is that what you guys agreed to?
Not yet. We're
Oh,
just,
okay.
I just threw it out there as a starting point because I
Right.
think we all agree that's gonna get the lion's share. So let's start at 50 and see where we end up. So
Which one?
39,
H39.
H39.
Gateway signs, that's coming to
That's almost
completion
done.
is, so does that,
That's gonna be pulling off here. I think that might need real low amount of change, but I would take it out of our discussion.
What else?
Tell me, what is grant? What is this Gateway Signs?
That's just the signs for the entrance into the community that say Town of Canandaigua. There was a whole team that was working on it in the last couple of years, so it's basically done. So they're just getting them built at this point, and we're gonna build stands.
Didn't
for
we
them
already
and what have you.
budget?
The signs have been built, but the installations haven't all been completed yet. So that's where the cost could potentially be with additional signs and the installation of the ones that have already been built that need to be finished installing, I believe, is where that project stands.
Sarah's on the phone. Sarah, what's our contract on those? Do we have?
I am, yeah, thanks, Kate. I couldn't get my stuff to come back up, so Kate was trying to help. Yeah, so there's still some costs left that we have to expend. We have not paid for the installation of the signs to the sign company. And then I know that the budget was approved with more money for additional signs this year. We haven't dived into that idea yet. We wanted to get these in the ground before we even talked about that. Originally, the group that was working on this, the Gateway Signs Committee, had identified 11 locations. And we had 6 signs made so far.
So maybe what we do as a suggestion is we would take the money that's been appropriated in the 23 budget
I
and
think
the
we put
general
that in
fund.
here.
Put
We
it in there.
transfer
Yeah.
it to the
I
capital
don't want to put any
project.
more money.
And
in
then
it
that
right
way
now.
we just.
Until
we're
we
done
see,
with it.
because I know the committee came up with a recommendation. I don't know that right now I want to put more
Yeah, let's just
Into
start what
that,
we've got in
we
there
get-
and get them installed.
and move that over into there.
Right, and then we'll just be done with it.
And then we see if
And then if there's extra needed for the just completing the installation of the
Then we
six that
can
we've
address
got,
it.
we can figure that out.
what is the balance of the Gateway sign right now?
Gateway sign currently has about $7,900 in it.
and whatever
But we've already.
We already
paid
bought
for
the
most
sign.
of
Right,
it,
right, no, I understand that, but it sounds like we bought half of what we might need.
Well,
Potentially.
well,
Well,
it was different.
that's, yeah.
So,
What was approved were the 6 that have already been built and are waiting for installation. The
Right.
original idea or recommendation from the committee was, here's 11 places where we think you should put them. You know, and that's why there was a budget request for 2023 for additional money to create more signs. But obviously that hasn't been approved by the board yet. We haven't discussed it yet.
So let's get the ones we haven't, that we've already
Yeah.
purchased in the ground. 7,900 will cover that.
I have to look at the contract and the remaining amount.
Yeah, but
I don't have that in front of me right now.
Right.
between that and the money that we have in the
Right.
23 budget, it
Right.
should wash
Budget.
itself out.
Yeah.
We're moving down the line.
Yeah.
It should be fine.
Yeah, I think that one's good. But we gotta fix infrastructure instead of infrastructure.
What's the balance on that one?
100,000,
Okay.
99,000.
And
Now, that
that
was
is,
part of a resolution that was done. There was $125,000 transfer into that, but a lot of that was relative to the MRV stuff. And so I know that not all the bills have hit yet for that. So even though that 99,000 is there right now, I think most all of that has been committed.
Mhm.
Where will lights come out of? The lights that we're talking about?
That should be the bid. It's
Okay.
completely separate.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. I just
This
was
is
wondering.
more like
When you say,
water, sewer, you
underground
know.
stuff, water sewers.
I often think of lights as infrastructure, but
Yeah.
not in this case.
This is more like the real underground digging such.
So really, so that's, what's the number for complete streets?
I mean, I mean, we're not completely funding all of these where they
No.
need to be, obviously, at this point, we're just splitting up. That's why I'm saying it's easier to just work with percentages at this point, but I mean, I think that needs some significant funding because we've got North Road, we've got Outhouse Road. I don't know if we're finished with Canandaigua Farmington Town
But
Line.
wasn't
but-
Outhouse West was the plan was to make that a complete street. That's what the Outhouse West one is,
It
correct?
could be from either one, but
Well, wait, so H36 is not the road, it's the improvements, it's
Yeah.
Motion Junction, the pavilion, it's
Right.
all of that stuff.
Yeah.
H38 is the complete streets, that would be making out House Road or whatever
I
other.
thought we had one there that we talked about for the, just focusing on that for the sidewalks. Okay.
Yeah, that's part of
Yeah, it could be wrong.
H38.
Okay.
yeah, I think H38 is gonna be side rocks, off-road trails. I mean, we could probably even pull Auburn Trail stuff from there if we needed to.
So H37, how much money do we need for the fire station? And how much money do
More
we
than-
have in there?
We need more money than we have for all of these things.
Well, but that also,
They're a multi-year capital project.
Exactly.
so.
So wait, so H37, right, so that 75,000 we put in there is what we anticipate the cost of the generator to be, that's it. So that
Yeah.
doesn't include any improvements.
Mhm.
and we need to have a serious discussion, because there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to the fire station of what people would like to see and what people want to do with it, what the fire department wants. That's another discussion, whether we keep it, whether we change it, whether we move it, whether we add on to it. There's a lot of stuff going on with that.
And once
So
we
it
put it
needs some
into
funding.
these, yeah, I was gonna say, once we put it
Right.
into the, not coming out, you know,
Right,
so
but it
these
can
are
all- but
actually.
if we put it in the fire station one, and we add on to the fire station, or do something that can go into, that can all help fund that.
So the other thing about capital projects though, you guys, is once you close out the capital project, that money can then be returned back to the general fund. So it's
Yeah,
not like you're
it's-
losing.
we're not
reserve.
losing
Yeah.
Like a reserve.
I just got it down 20% complete streets, 15% outhouse west, 15% fire station. That's just, and I'm just throwing that out there for discussion. And I just put it
Can you
down.
repeat that again?
20% complete streets, 15% fire station, H37, 15% H36, that gets us to 100%. That's the only reason I throwing those out as a starting point, so we keep the conversation going.
What does the fire station need now? I mean,
Well, the generator, that was the immediate, right?
And
But that's-
That was this
It's
complete.
done, right?
It needs a
needs-
look at everything that's going on.
And
right?
it's-
More does it need?
Well, that goes back to what
It
Jared
goes
was
back
saying.
to, I mean,
Well,
it's,
but
What's its role gonna
but
be?
That's
the,
a separate.
In terms of the immediate priority was that generator. That's what that.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but down the road, it's, I mean, it's on the inside, it's not perfectly functional for what they might have.
Yeah.
There are some other improvements, technology improvements, electric improvements that could happen on the inside of it. Roof, the roof's leaking and it drips into the bay and
Yeah.
just,
Yeah,
yeah, so,
but it, all of that depends on what its future purpose is.
right,
Whether it
Yeah.
stays as a fire station.
right.
We're not really addressing that today. I mean.
No,
No, that's
If
just.
you put money in there, you can get it back out
Yeah.
if you close the project out, so
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. what-
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm any number, I'd like to have some number in there, but I'm okay with either way, either direction we were to go with that.
Can we
So-
have a similar conversation about House West?
Yeah, I'd like to hear that too.
So.
That
I
is
don't
kinda
think-
phased,
I
so-
don't think you need a lot of money at this point for Outhouse West, and let me explain. So really, the overall plan there is 5 phases, right? Phase 1 was the park. Phase 2 is the pavilion. Phase 2 being the pavilion is essentially fully funded by the not-for-profit entity, and then they donate it to us. Yes, we're gonna have some expenses. Currently, we have about $32,000, give or take, in there versus the what's kind of going on in terms of the report as of 3/1/23. There are some expenses, yes, and we also budgeted for in the 23 budget additional expenses that can also be transferred over here.
Yeah.
It's when you get going forward after we get the pavilion. So let's just talk this out for a quick second. So hypothetically, let's say June 1st, the pavilion is constructed, the whole thing's back up and open again for the summer. Everybody's having a great time. It's actually when you go to do the 24 budget, by the time you get to fall is when you need to start thinking about, do you want to take the next step with phase 3, which phase 3 is like the lighting, all the other improvements, that those expenses would be the town of Canandaigua.
Those are ours.
Right, so, but we don't need any of that for right now. So I don't know that you really need to even allocate much of anything.
So can we
To
try,
that.
so can we, then we can transfer, if we can transfer the budget into here,
Yeah, let's do that.
and then we reserve that other amount. I just don't want to be surprised, because I know we had some surprises,
Right.
like, oh,
Yeah.
running the electrical
Mhm.
service underground, that's.
Right.
you know,
Well, that's why we've
150 grand
got-
and all those others.
The capital project now, so we can track it. That'll be much better than just grabbing it from the CM. So
So if I hear correctly, fire station, we want to minimize if anything, right? I mean, do we put a little bit of money in there?
how much is the roof gonna cost? Anybody know? Because that sounds
Oh.
like we should probably do that.
Well, I think you want to make a decision, right?
Well,
Do you want to put a new roof on it, or are we gonna do something different,
or
right?
if you had a second story on the building, then
Yeah,
Mm,
if you expand the building up,
Right.
because you're really not gonna enlarge the footprint, but if you expand it up,
right.
then the roof wouldn't happen.
I mean, you could probably throw a little bit of money in there if you wanted some sort of engineering analysis
So-
or that kind of stuff. but
That's
you're
what
not
I'm
gonna
thinking.
do-
It's not, we're not going to make major decisions on the fire station right
15%
now,
would put
right?
us at about 100 grand, roughly,
so
which,
we don't need
Doesn't sound like we don't need it.
but we're not gonna get an engineering study or anything else done for,
less than 20.
it's gonna be
Put
20 to
100 in
30.
there, it's a lot.
Plus the roof. You think
Yeah.
100's a lot in there?
Yeah,
I think so
that's
too,
a lot.
yeah.
And you know what, if we need to do an engineering study, we're gonna find other pots of money that we're gonna be able to go and fund the engineering study with. It's not gonna be a lot of money.
So.
So 5% is $75,000.
I don't think we ought to even think about that right now, in my opinion.
What I would say was, what is the bare minimum we need for the fire station? Because
Yeah.
it doesn't sound, we haven't made any decisions with that. There's a lot of different directions that we could go. I mean, I guess we can get the money back, but why put it in
Why
if we
put
could
it
do,
in?
if we could get a sidewalk that we could get going on
I
somewhere?
agree.
But you also have the bid that could relate to some of that too, so.
If the bid took it over.
The bid for the fire station,
Yeah.
right,
Mhm,
To some extent.
right.
So, yeah.
All right, so
So 5%,
that's 75. Do we want to do 2.5?
5% would put us
I
at
think
35,000.
My vote is, I wouldn't even address it right now.
Well, do we have anything?
It
in there
needs
at
to have
all?
a budget though. It needs
Well,
to-
we do have the
We have the
money for the
generator, the
generator.
remainder
That
of
was
the
all,
generator.
that was why we created
So
it,
we've
to get
got-
started.
Yeah.
30,000 with 30 grand left ballpark.
Jim, wasn't the generator about 70? I thought.
No,
So,
no, Doug, the generator cost us 46,000.
So then, yeah, you got about 30 in there.
Okay, so then we just,
installation, is
then
that
we,
installed, or is that,
Yeah, I think he's
is that
good.
installed, Jim, or is that?
I think you're gonna say-
I'm sorry, say that one more time, Terry?
Was that installed, Bryce, or is that,
Yeah, that's all installed, that's in operation.
Is this surplus? the
so
old
is
ones?
there anything else that the fire station needs this in the short
Urgently,
term,
yeah.
a year?
Other than the roof needs to be, probably just, even if we just get patched,
Could we,
or our board figures out what's gotta be done.
yeah, repair the roof. So it's not leaking.
Yeah.
That'll get us through till we decide what we're gonna do, I think at a minimum. And if we have that 30-some thousand in there,
I should repair the roof.
I
Probably.
mean,
Jim, the only other thing I know of with the fire station that was immediate was actually the door, but I think Frank already ordered that, didn't he?
Yeah, the new trolley or the opener is done.
Okay,
That was 5,000.
so there's no real
so
immediate. other
then
than
let's just transfer the money from the budget. Then we just keep it, we have that.
Okay,
70,
so
we have the
nothing in there
remainder.
essentially from our 1.5.
So now we're down to the 2.
So now, yeah, and then do we want to
Well,
toss
and the
something in
Uptown
the
Canada
infrastructure up the 35?
Right, so the question about that, right, is I guess you'd have to make some decisions. Part of the unknown when we created that was what exactly was gonna happen with Canada Farmington Water District. I think you guys generally are going in a direction with that, so you might not need much more of that. Now, that may come into play once we have the bid meeting and that kind of stuff, right? But perhaps at this point, you don't put much else into that one either.
Okay,
That leaves just 38 and 39.
38, 39. So we're currently at 50% for 39, which is gonna be, what is that, 750?
So do we need 750? I mean, we could use 750 in complete streets, but since we're so far behind on paving and all the other stuff
I
that
think
Jim's
that-
doing, do we change that 50% to something
I
different?
think at a minimum, I would feel 60-40 with that.
Yeah,
That's the minimum that I would.
60 into 39 and 40 into 38.
Yeah, that's the min, 60 is probably the minimum that I would want to, knowing that we're not funding the
Do the other
others.
ones.
right.
60 is the minimum that I would want to put into H39.
I would
Then
agree with
60
that.
would be roughly 900,000.
And I'd be okay. I mean, I'd be okay breaking it up.
Why not put a million and 500?
500,000.
Yeah.
Because then
That's fine with me.
we've got 500 going to our complete streets and then,
Yeah, that's
You
fine
put it
with
in
me.
there, it doesn't, if something happens and you need the money someplace else. Close it out. Pull it
Right.
out. So,
but we're always going to need,
just parking it for.
we're always going to need to improve the road.
Right.
Complete streets, when you're talking about sidewalks like North Road, that's probably 2 years out anyway,
Yeah.
at least. I mean, what we heard in Farmington, the speed at which they're gonna work,
But
Yeah.
if
So
we were able to get a start and get it something in there,
Well,
so
you
when the
gotta-
time comes, we're not gonna have this.
sidewalks gonna want to tap that, all that infrastructure.
Right,
Yeah,
But
get
if
that
we're-
done first. so.
if we can get it built up over the next few years,
Well, yeah,
then there's not as much of a hit. That would be
Exactly.
the ideal step for that.
Something that occurred to me the other night, Monday night during the town board meeting, that listening to the presentations from Canandaigua, the city and the Cheshire volunteers, that, we have contracts that we're supposedly locked into with them for 3 years total, I guess. Is it both 3 years? Yeah. But, with their increasing costs coming along, we don't really have any kind of reserve set up to start hedging against future, truck purchases and equipment purchases for Cheshire. I mean, the city, we wind up paying a chunk of that, but it's not direct like it is with Cheshire. I just wondered if we should have some kind of reserve set up there that we're squirreling some money against because of the cost of these trucks.
Fire protection reserve fund, you're saying?
So
For a truck.
so you're saying fire protection reserve fund?
Yeah, we don't have a fire protection reserve fund, do we?
I don't believe it is actually something that's permitted by the comptroller. So I was just looking at, but we do have the fire protection fund, which does have its own fund balance. There's not a lot in it.
Mhm.
I want to
Like
say
75,000 or
it's,
something.
yeah, somewhere in that 65, 75, some or other range. You could build up the fund balance a little bit if you wanted in the fire protection fund. But that all 100% has to come from taxes, you know.
So we would have to cheat the tax, we'd have to swing adjust the tax rate up a few pennies every year.
Now, keep in mind, the one thing that we did do with the budget amendment there, before we adopted this, was the sales tax.
Yeah.
appropriation,
That's
right?
where we pulled it
So,
in.
Right.
Yeah, if you guys, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but last year, in order to keep that tax rate lower, but give that really significant increase to the fire protection, we pulled money from the sales tax revenue and put it into the fire protection.
No, somehow.
So that's I mean, that makes sense to have going forward, just to.
It's, I mean, we're paying, what do we pay Cheshire now?
900.
750 or 8?
I think it's 8. Off the top of my head, 8 something around.
I thought it was
Price of the
900.
next truck.
That's
When
the
was
city.
Right, one truck is what that costs, right?
Yeah.
Then 15 years to go south and offer protection to people down there. They'll be happy with it.
But
As I said, the other day.
technically, the fire protection fund, the way that works, right, is that's not our expense. We're
Yeah.
contracted. We don't have, the town of Canada doesn't have a fire department, right? So we have to think about it in those terms. So it would be, if we had a fund or even a reserve fund, it would be to offset future tax increases.
Mhm.
That's where we might be able to get away with
Contingent tax
something like a
reserve, yeah.
contingency tax reserve of
Mhm.
60. I'd have to look at general municipal
Yeah.
a little bit closer, because all we'd be doing is hedging our bet against future tax increases.
So instead of raising it a few pennies, we just use that fund to offset that
Contingent tax.
If
potential
there was
tax
one, yeah.
increase, right?
That can go into.
That's a good
It's not a general.
Right.
It seems like we're going to see significant increases in the future.
Yeah.
And maybe we're good for 3 years, but
But if it's not allowed by the state, then that's. I think
Yeah,
that's
Well,
a
I'd have to do
distance,
some
yeah.
research
finding a
on what that
mechanism to do that.
But
as
the
well.
contingent tax reserve fund would probably be a great place to do that, because that's the whole point of it, is keeping taxes lower.
Yeah,
So-
well, that fire protection tax.
It's
in the
creeping up.
distant future will be the same as our
Creeping up
property
as our
Call it general.
It's definitely
Yeah.
creeping up.
But for today's exercise,
Yeah.
we're looking at 1 million into 39 and a half, 1 million into 38.
Are we all good with that? So what do we need to make that happen then?
We have to create a budget, so I have to work with Jim in terms of actual expenses, because we'll actually have to put together a budget for each of them and then
Okay.
bring to you by resolution.
Okay. Does that mean that you're gonna indicate which specific projects are going to be worked on for the budget, or?
Generally, it's done by the chart of accounts, so it'd be like, excuse me, capital expenditure improvements would be like 200s, these are all capital. So much for engineering, so much for actual roadway, but yada, yada, yada. So I would think the majority of your expense relative to complete streets starting out, obviously, would be engineering.
Mhm. Yeah.
I would recommend that you put that together so that we can review it and discuss it at a finance committee meeting rather than going right to resolution with it.
Sure.
Yeah, I always like to hear about them ahead if we
Yeah.
can, just so that we can have our questions answered here and then share kind of a
Yep.
broader view with the
It
public.
probably wouldn't be road specific unless that's what you're looking for.
I think
because
complete
this is
streets
more
could
of
be
the-
road specific. I think the complete streets ones could be road specific, right?
Well, so for the chart of accounts, that like engineering is like a 1440, that
Mhm.
doesn't tell me what road.
Okay.
That would be like X number of dollars going for engineering for complete streets. Then you guys could direct which are the
Okay.
roads you want.
Wow.
So Jim, that's where Jim is gonna have to help with.
Yeah, I'd
That
like to get it
piece.
to the point where we actually do, and maybe it's just with the complete streets, identify where we're gonna use that money.
Okay.
I think we know which ones we want. It's just the order that they
Yeah,
can be
exactly.
done and, you know,
Right.
that they're ready to be
Yeah.
done essentially. So, I mean, like North Road, obviously, that's the giant, you know.
If
Can
possible,
you just tell us that right now, just so, and we'll work.
I,
Like,
I mean,
what's your
for
priorities?
me, my priorities, I mean, the streets are North Road, Middle Cheshire Road, Outhouse Road, and 364 between CMAC and City.
Well, that's
That's been
happening.
done. That's the
That's
county.
happening with the county.
Yeah.
That was
So there's
done.
nothing for us to do on that.
I think the easy check off is to finish up that section of, there's a Middle Cheshire Road chunk
0.8
that
mile
needs to be
chunk,
done.
yeah.
I think that's first, because that's first to get.
Further along.
Where on Middle Cheshire?
The end
It's
of it.
0.8 mile from
Right.
between West Ridge Road and the
520.
city line.
Yeah,
That was supposed to, that hasn't been, that's not done.
that's all engineered, right?
No,
it's
that's been
That-
budgeted to be engineered. It
that's-
hasn't been engineered.
If I remember hearing Jim correctly, there's a lot of groundwork, legwork
Yes,
that needs
there
to be
is.
done in order for that project to move forward.
There
And my
is.
guess is that that's going to take us a pretty long period of time
It
to
already
get that
has.
legwork done. So I'm okay with starting the legwork. But then the question becomes, how much are we going to dedicate to that, knowing that it might be out, I'm just going to pick a number, might be out 2 years by the time we get all that legwork done.
So that's budgeted from 2022 budget and in the 2023 budget to have the engineering done on that. So it just needs to be moved forward.
But it's not just engineering, you gotta have
To do the engineering. for it?
Easements.
easements.
Yeah.
It says easements, right? But I think,
No,
The
to do
thing-
the design work, the
No.
survey.
no,
There's
it's just
no money in
easements.
it.
It was just easements. The big huge thing, and it always comes back to this, because Jim and I have talked about this. First of all, there has to be an analysis, what makes the most sense, which side of the road.
Right.
I know it's
There
already
has
on the
been,
one
though.
side. No, there hasn't. Because on the one side of the road, it dips way down. You've
Mhm.
got all the utility poles and everything else that would have to be moved. The other side might be more practical. So there has to be an analysis of that as a starting point. And then you could go out and get easements for whichever side makes sense.
And that effort in itself sounds like, to me, just to get the engineering done and then start talking about easements, you're talking a year or two.
I mean, we've been working on North Road easements for a long time, up until we got to a point where the residents said we're not giving them, and that's why we had to wait for the reconstruction.
And my only point is, I'm
Yeah,
okay with it being a priority. I'm not taking issue with that, Adeline. My question is, how long are you're gonna take this money and let it sit in that bucket for quite a while? That's my only concern, where we could maybe expedite some of the other ones a little quicker. That's my only
Well,
question.
the ones that we've mentioned, North Road's gonna take a while as well, because
Can't
it's,
even touch that one.
yeah, that's a rough one. Outhouse might be the easiest of all of them.
truthfully, outhouse is the one we have the most control of.
Right,
Alone with
right,
it.
right. We could complete that one.
But I do think that we should get the engineering expedited and get the easements in process for Middle Cheshire.
It's almost like for that section, I know Adeline wants to see progress. You almost need to do this, whether it's a feasibility analysis or whatever, and then have that data come back to you to make a decision, which
Yeah.
side of the road is it going?
Absolutely.
At least as a starting. And then you could work on easements. And
So
you
then
could
we
work
need
on
to
the
move forward with that,
We have
because
to make that
otherwise,
decision. I mean,
Yeah.
because otherwise we're gonna be constantly spinning our wheels.
Right. We'll be right where we are right now.
Exactly what
on.
we've been doing for 15 years.
Yeah, so let's,
So do we need a proposal from MRB to get this rolling?
Yes, I was just gonna say to the board that I think we do Middle Cheshire and North Road at the same time, because both are gonna need poles moved. And that takes a long time to get stuff out of the way.
Good idea.
My suggestion would be to speak with MRB about what it would cost to prepare both of them to get this ball rolling. And then in the meantime, Outhouse Road is the, I'll say the less effort, and come up with a design for that road for us to review that we could start sooner than later.
Hey, Jim, the only thing is with North Road, I thought we had talked about curb mountable sidewalk to stay in the right as much as possible. Will that still work?
It will, we could fit it in there, Doug, but there's about 12 poles that got to be relocated. There's just,
So Jim, is there any
Way.
opportunity to go on the other side of the road, the Pactive side of the road?
you're on North Street there.
Oh, okay, I'm
Dave.
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Jim. No, never mind.
That's okay. That's okay. We intended to keep it on the south side of North Road, just due to the school being on that side, and there's already a sidewalk that comes down to Tim Hortons.
Mhm.
Well, then I think one of the ones we should look at is North Bloomfield Road then, because that has a lot of traffic on it.
You're talking about North Street into North Bloomfield.
That's the city. That's actually in the city.
So where do we start?
That's the dividing line, that road.
so the
So
right-hand side of that road, outside is in the city, the north side is in the
side's
town. But As in the town.
tops
Right,
in the town.
right, right.
Dave, the city has plans to rebuild that entire road.
And the city also has plans to actually put sidewalk on North Bloomfield Road up to the Civic Center too. but
Oh,
that
they
got
do.
delayed. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
So, yeah,
Put that up.
yeah.
So
But
they're
then
moving
it's
poles
town-
there then.
It's town right
Well,
after, like on the other side of outhouse there, right? That's all town.
The sewer pump station, right? Where the Civic Center is, that's the divider.
There's the Civic Center, Adeline.
So that little lip there though, that is from, what is that?
The pump station.
The pump station
Right.
to Outhouse Road, it would still be us.
That would be the town, but we
That's
also have a trail right there
Yeah.
that they've already installed,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
Next to the Civic Center.
But a civic center's in the town.
No,
City.
City.
No, city.
Center's in the city.
City.
That field,
The YMCA is.
City.
City.
Okay.
the field next to the Civic Center, a good chunk of that,
Um,
most all of that is town.
Town.
And it would also fit a football field in there. Just saying. I just saying, plunk a football field down there. It would
Hey, I
fit.
got a bench over there already that you can't
It would
move.
fit. Just saying.
The one that you guys
My
did not mention when you were talking about complete streets, and I just said something to Jim and Terry yesterday. I took a picture this week. Outhouse Road is one where we constantly see people on the side of the road.
Yes.
Brickyard Road is the other one. Constantly seeing people on the side of the road, whether it's riding a bike. We did a traffic study just recently that included Brickyard Road. We know that there was a pedestrian bicycle accident with a car on Brickyard Road. And even as you heard the other night, there's more and more traffic
Right.
on Brickyard
Yeah.
Road. So.
Well, can't.
There's another area that really needs to be addressed in that County Road 10. I know that second phase of Creekview is supposed to
They're
have
supposed to have that done.
that done, but nobody can say when that's going to occur.
You're
'Cause they're all
absolutely
competing
correct.
for the same money. But that thing down there is this wide. There are people coming from Creekview trying to get to. some of the
It's Stone
stores
Dust
down
too,
there.
I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Really should do something with that, whether it comes out, wherever it comes out of, any of these or.
Well, it's in their conditions approval. Before they can pull a building permit for phase 2, they actually have to install sidewalk.
So then
When's that?
we're good on that then.
Well,
They're,
it's the
they're waiting
grant.
for a
It's the
grant.
Yeah.
so
You're
they can
absolutely
start
right.
their phase
Something
two.
could be done to provide a better walking path, trail, whatever you want to call it, for those people. I mean, in the winter especially.
In the winter.
They're out on the road there a lot. I ride my bike there quite a bit. They're out on the road quite a bit there.
Let me follow up with the developer on that. Jim and I have regular conversations with them and try to keep putting pressure on them, but they know that that's their
The same
expense.
thing with a lady that, a couple of years ago, that lady pushing her carriage and went down and hurt herself significantly.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of constituents complaining about it too. So that's, thank you.
Doug,
For
we could talk to DeMarco and say, we're gonna hold up dedication until we put in that sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's
We
something we
should-
could do.
Confines of their conditions of approval. But like Outhouse Road, Brickyard Road, Melchester Road for that matter, nobody else is gonna, it's the town's responsibility.
Yeah, of course.
So let's, kind of going back to what we were doing. What's our feet? So focusing on the 2 that we came up with first, that we were focusing in on. So we talked about North Road and we talked about Outhouse Road, doing a study combined.
No, North Road.
I mean,
Middle Chester.
Road, yep,
Yeah.
thanks. So I think of that 500,000, whatever we need to allocate for the study first, because that's going to be a
Get the
chunk of money.
engineering.
And then we can do then the
Outhouse.
balance or whatever we might have left to get Outhouse done. So I think that should be the
To get
focus on
Outhouse
those
started.
2. Yeah.
Well, I mean, do we start on Brickyard? Do we do some preliminary stuff?
But the
Because,
thing
I think we've had outhouse existing as a problem for longer.
With-
oh no, I'm all for that, but I'm
with
saying, but
Brickyard, you have the whole length of, you've got the length in front of all of the townhouses. It's got the trail. The gravel trail.
Except for, keep in mind, that's on private property and the Auburn Trail actually has to be installed on the opposite side of the road. And Jim needs to redo Brickyard Road. So it's almost like that all needs to come as a unified process.
so do we start looking at that from a standpoint of, we're gonna need to do that, right?
Well, Jim has requested the last 2 or 3 years money to redo Brickyard Road, and we keep holding off because the Canandaigua Farmington Water Project has to crisscross back and forth and cut through the
Right.
road. We come back to the same exact issue again,
Right.
right? But again, as soon as that's done and we know that's moving forward, it's all got to be engineered for a complete reconstruction of Brickyard Road. And then that's when you could do, you know, it's the Auburn Trail, not sidewalk on Brickyard Road, let's
Yeah.
face it.
Right.
And that takes care of that problem. And then, but the incorporation of that.
But if we engineered that before we'd have to engineer before we rebuilt it. I mean, why wouldn't we start that process?
Well, we've already done the feasibility analysis. Remember, we hired Fisher Associates to do
Right.
part of it. We hired MRB
That
to do
Auburn
part of
Trail,
it.
right?
So,
Yeah.
So that piece of it is done, but the actual road reconstruction. Jim, are you still, can you talk about that?
I'm still here.
Okay, because I know Jim has talked to me about the road being fat. Can you just explain to everybody what we keep talking about with Brickyard Road?
Well, yeah, so Brickyard Road has been a road that the town has, for years, just kind of kept together by surface treatments on the asphalt. There's no drainage involved. We haven't replaced any cross culverts, and there's not much of a shoulder to the road, which there in turn has the problem with people biking them and walkability on that area. So in order to fix it, it's a long road. It's not going to be cheap to repair. I'll give you an example. Farmington just went out to bid for 1,000 feet of road, and it's $500,000 to repair. So that comes to $2.5 million per mile now, if you were to start talking complete road reconstruction, which is pretty insane, to be honest with you, right now with the cost of putting this in the ground. I would probably start more from the north end of Brickyard after they get done with the water main than the south end. Because then we could do the construction on top of the water main at the same time. So it's being torn up once, not twice, and then work our way south. Where's the town of Canandaigua?
But I mean, how long's that road, Jim? What's it, 5 miles long?
No, it's 3.5 miles.
So still $10 million.
$10 million.
Yeah, well.
Well,
You guys just saw the data that we just got back. That thing is getting traffic, and it's going to continue to get traffic for the next 20 years.
If that gets developed more highly up there, is there any way to get people that are developing the housing projects to kick in, you know, because that's what's, you know, causing the wear and tear on the road. Is there a mechanism that can be used to?
It's worth exploring. I mean, I know the town of Farmington has done that in the past through incentive zoning. In that particular case, we don't need incentive zoning there, right? But we do have the capability to maybe recoup some funds with the new development up through that area for if there's a rezoning request, or if you know, through Parks and Recs to help with the Auburn Trail, specifically with that piece and some fees and that kind of stuff. So it would help some. But I mean, Terry, you did the original feasibility analysis of the Auburn Trail. I think it was in 2013. I think it was $3.5 million. So you're talking about $10 million of road cross, probably $10 million for the trail. It's
But then once that's done, nobody will need the road,
right?
Because everybody will walk on that.
There was this old guy.
Yeah, that's why I brought that up.
We won't those trails because
we won't have
run out of oil.
It's a little bit more than the 1.5 we're saying you have to play with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, at least we're not playing with it. We're putting it.
Yeah. So then do we?
All right. Are we at a
we
good
go forward
agreement
with those
spot?
two?
We know kind of where we are. Do you have enough direction to move forward?
I think so. We can, the study analysis. So that's essentially engineering, right? Middle Cheshire Road, North Road, to get you data so that you guys can make a decision on at least some starting points.
Yeah.
You got that.
Okay. And we're all comfortable with where we are with the general fund unassigned. And that's going to bring it down to what, like still 2 and change. Yeah. Okay.
So we're still okay with it.
Do we want to reevaluate that fund policy? Are we too low on our fund policy for the general fund unassigned? Do we want to make that more like 40% of average expenditures?
Well, I think if we put that in the contingent. reserve and it's always fluctuating and it's only our own policy that we're
Yeah.
technically violating. If
Yeah,
it's
but
at 35%
The
versus.
fact that we're violating that policy
Yeah.
is what brought it to our attention that something needed to
Right,
be
but
done.
it doesn't
You know
always
what I
happen.
mean?
We're
So-
not always in that boat.
Well, the
Yeah.
policy itself, actually, what the policy instructs
It's
us
a
to do is
recommendation.
through the budget process, make a recommendation or
Yeah.
outside the budget process. And that's what we always do every year is when we're doing the budget, we're looking at how much we're appropriating and then where it's at and where we project it's going to be.
Well,
I
if
think the
we,
biggest thing, the town board made a big change going into 2023. I just don't want you to make decisions
Sales
based on 2020
Yeah.
and 2021 because of that increase in sales tax.
Mhm, yeah.
That is going to change what 24, 25 look like.
Back to my original comment about we're currently 15 to 30% of the average annual expenditures is the recommended fund balance policy. If we were to up that to 40%, that would be just over 2 million at this point. So I'm just wondering if we should change that.
What's the audit threshold on that?
I'm sorry.
There is none.
Reasonable.
Through that budget process, always be cognizant that watching what's happening with the economy and sales tax
Mhm.
revenue. I leave it.
Just leave it
I'm
as is.
comfortable leaving it where it is, but always be ready to review it.
It's just nice when we're kind of in compliance with our
Right.
policy. You know what I mean? Like I hate to be way out of compliance with our policy.
That's what I was wondering, if there is no recommendation by like the comptroller's office
Mhm.
specifically, then if you at least changed your threshold,
Yeah.
you would be following your own policy, because by not following your policy, you are triggering a reason.
But you've also made big adjustments. I think what I'd recommend in this particular case is wait until the audit's complete so you have that number. Then we can factor in the changes that you've made here today and that we made at the last meeting.
Mhm.
See what the number is and then determine whether or not you're in compliance with the policy and then decide if you want to change the policy.
Mhm.
Okay. But just so everybody knows, that's around 2 million if it's 40% at this point. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order we want to chat about in finance?
When's our next meeting?
We're gonna have it the Thursday before that next town board meeting.
Oh, one more quick thing. I put a memo in each of the 10 board members' boxes about the numbers for Canandaigua Farmington Water. I just want you to go into that eyes wide open. Based on the three options that they presented to you, I showed you about what the increases would be for the average home in the Canandaigua Farmington Water District and also how much money we would be paying to Farmington. My biggest concern with that is based on previous expenditures and budgets that we've done. There's been about $634,000 in revenue that's come from the town of Canandaigua to the Canandaigua Farmington Water District outside of the budget process. And based on the numbers that I believe that Supervisor Inglesby was sharing with you, I think he's projecting about 900,000. So my only concern is I don't know what that other 300,000, where that's coming from. So again, it's just something I think we're going to need to continue the conversation. And I don't know if that's an increase in the number of users. I don't know if that's an increase in water rates because that's what wasn't included in those numbers. If they're also, in addition to increasing the tax levy, also increasing the water rate charge to make up that difference. I just want you guys to go into it eyes wide open, that's all.
To answer your question, by the way, April 13th is the next finance committee meeting at 10:45. And that one we'll be discussing what we need to discuss for the next town board meeting on the 17th. Are we good with having another finance committee meeting on April 20th? Do we want to have another like?
Yeah, we have to have,
That's
on the
right.
20th, we have to have, thanks for bringing that one up. We have to have a special finance / town board meeting
Okay.
on the 20th.
Time.
That's CCA, right?
At the same time, to review the community choice information, because our town board meeting that Monday is out of the window that we have to approve it by. So we have to have this meeting to review the documents.
You have to approve them.
What's that?
You have to actually approve them.
Yeah, so we have to have, we can't do it at our town board meeting on Monday.
I got our board meeting on April 17th.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
We
No,
have-
it's got to be between April 5th or April 20th and May 5th, I think.
Yeah, so we're having on the 20th, at our finance meeting, we're also gonna have a special town board meeting
Okay,
to approve the community choice
okay,
decision.
gotcha.
I think that's probably all we'll do at that
Yeah.
meeting, unless you guys have something else you want to go over finance
Because that's the
wise.
first day we can approve it.
April 20th, 10:45.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so-
Same meeting time.
So we're
Oh, okay.
So we're generally with finance committee meetings, we're always gonna have it at 10:45 on the Thursday before our town board meeting, like we always have. But we have currently a probable finance meeting on actually the Thursday after our town board meetings going forward. That one is optional at this point. So, I mean, not April 20th, but going forward, we can decide if it makes sense for us to have that meeting the following month, or if we don't need it that particular month. But right now, as it is, we've always got the Thursday before the town board meeting, finance committee meeting, the Thursday after the town board meeting.
So,
finance committee
To
meeting.
that point, on the 13th, what are we
Yes.
gonna be talking about?
The upcoming town board meeting and what's on the agenda that is related to
Wouldn't we be
finance.
addressing that on the 20th?
It's
CCA.
It's after the
That's
meeting.
after the
It's
board
after the meeting.
The board meeting's on the.
Oh, that's right.
17th, on the 17th.
Okay, and then on the 20th, then, would we
CCA.
expect Doug to come back with his breakdown of the monies we just talked about?
So you can do that on the 13th or 20th, whatever makes sense to you, if you think you have it by then.
I don't think our community choice will take that long.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
just, we'll have the presentation, we'll have the information, we just have to make the decision. I think we can do both as part of
Okay.
it, my personal thing. I'm not, it's one resolution, it's gonna be quick, we'll be.
Does that work?
So you're gonna get a breakdown on the capital projects.
Okay. This is good.
Okay, great. So if we're all good, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're good.
Sarah, I'll see you in a few minutes in Zoom. I'm gonna try to make it back to school and zoom in from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Wish me luck.
And if anybody wants to come to